Man, this is Deion Dawkins, man, and you're listening to The Scoop on OurScoop.com. You already know.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Scoop, the weekly podcast of OurScoop.com, the authority on Temple athletics. We are on to episode 25 of our 11th season. I'm your host, John DeCarlo, the editor of OurScoop.com. Our assistant editor, Kyle Gauss, is with us, along with Colin Schofield and Ryan Mack. We've got a great show for you this week. You're going to hear my interview with former Temple star and former 7-year NFL defensive tackle Matt Ioannidis. We talked about his time at Temple, that 2015 season, life and retirement, and a whole lot more. We'll get you ready for Temple's men's basketball game against Charlotte Wednesday night. We'll talk to you about why Diane Richardson's women's team has started to turn things around. They completed the biggest comeback in the history of the program over the weekend. And we'll have answers for you to your mailbag questions, as we always do. The Scoop, once again, is brought to you by Greenspan and Greenspan Injury Lawyers. If you've been injured while on the road or the highway and the crash was someone else's fault, the insurance company is not going to be on your side. You need us, Temple Law grads, who will fight hard to get the compensation that you deserve. We only get paid if we win, so in Pennsylvania or New York, call us today at 215-261-7359. That's 215-261-7359. And you can find them on the web at greenspans-law.com. Still running a subscription deal at OurScoop, $1 for the first 5 days of your membership, and that still includes a free year of The Athletic. So I know the portal window has closed now. The portal window craziness has calmed down a little bit, but again, a lot of football news, basketball news coming your way. So a great time, as always, to subscribe to OurScoop. Ryan and Colin, I'm going to give you guys each a minute to say what you need to say to each other. We've got some stuff to get to. We've got a Matt Ioannidis interview to play. I told Ryan to be a good sport. I don't know if he was going to be a good sport about this. Ryan, I will tell you, maybe Kyle feels the same way. Enjoy that AFC Championship game. I think this is where the road ends for your team.
Oh, yeah.
But what do you guys have to say to each other now, as roommates, as friends, as coworkers, based on how things turned out? Let's cede the floor to Colin first.
I would like to say that for about a week leading up to the game, I was tortured, harassed, made fun of, and Ryan Mack went on this podcast last week without me being able to defend myself and spun it the other way. And all week I dealt with changed backgrounds, Patriots jerseys in my room, Patriots jerseys around my apartment, and I did nothing back. I never did anything back, and that's just how it was. And we got on this podcast where we started recording, and guess what Ryan's background was? The interception, and then the fumble, and then Mike Vrabel holding up the championship trophy. So do with that information as you may. I don't know what to say. He was a good sport at the end of the game, right at the end of the game, but all around that game was not fun.
Ryan, you have a minute to respond.
There were times last week where, it was just banter. I did change some backgrounds. I did, in fact, put my Patriots jersey in Colin's room. But I will not let this be a fact that I was torturing Colin. On Wednesday last week, I was at an award ceremony, and I was coming back, just wanting to go to bed. And when I went downstairs to open the door for my room, this is what I saw hanging out of my door. This does not feel like something that someone would do if they did not do anything back. So,
for those listening at home, your photo was a Broncos jersey hanging from your door.
I think what brings us together is that we all have the same dry cleaner hangers too. So there's that.
Yeah. And then my background in the Temple News office was changed to a Broncos background. But it was all in good fun. The road probably does end here. There's a meme of someone being like, "I'm so scared right now." And that's how I feel playing the Seahawks. Not gonna lie, especially with our offense not playing too hot. It's not looking too great. Not looking too great at all, honestly.
Here's the one thing I got going for you. Sam Darnold at any point can throw 3 picks.
Yeah.
He always has that up his sleeve. It's possible.
Actually, my roommate, Kinley, Colin can attest to this. For a hot second, he's gone, all it takes is one Sam Darnold game. And so I feel like he's going to be spewing that for 2 weeks. What I have learned, though, is that whenever I watch a Patriots game at Maxie's, the Patriots win. We were watching the game at my house, at my apartment, and the Patriots were losing. Me, Kinley, and Bailey, we took the trek in the blizzard to go walk to Maxie's, and the fumble happened, and then the touchdown happened, and then we won. I don't think that this was a coincidence. I don't think this is at all, honestly.
So what you're saying is you're willing to become a crippling alcoholic in order to secure a Super Bowl.
We've also given you a lot longer than a minute. But,
no, I wouldn't say that, but yeah, but it was all in good fun. Colin, I'm
Ryan,
sorry
if
for my
you
background.
if you could guarantee a Patriots Super Bowl,
Mhm.
but one of your earlobes just disappeared, you don't feel anything, you just
Yeah.
walk around the rest of your life with a missing earlobe, enough that people notice, would you give it up?
this is going to be interesting. Yeah, he's got to think about it. I don't know. I think he's a little too vain to.
Like, ooh, like right now, you just did that turn, and we would be like, what happened to Ryan's ear?
I wear hats, right?
What
What
hat is
earlobe?
covering
What
your
hat
earlobe?
covers an
You're
earlobe?
gonna wear a beanie all the time?
We have
Yeah,
our
you know?
answer. We have our answer. He's not.
Wow.
No, wait, no, maybe not because I wouldn't be able to wear earrings.
I would do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
And
no,
the
actually,
team I support won a Super Bowl 11 months ago, and I would do it in a heartbeat.
yeah, no, I would do that. We already have 6. 7's a little bit more than 6.
The math is checking out on that one.
Yeah. Oh. Um,
Who hit you? Was that Sienna?
yes.
6-7 jokes.
Oh God, no.
So yeah, I do think that would be great. And Drake May gets to get one. I love Drake May. Drake May.
Ryan texted me yesterday, 2 mornings ago, and said today's a national holiday. Just random text. Like,
I also got that. I got that same text. So we know that
Did
he's
you
a
respond
copy and paster.
appropriately? Because I responded appropriately.
What did I
John
say?
didn't yeah, actually, John didn't respond to me. It kind of hurt my feelings a bit.
I said it's May Day.
Yeah.
Did I?
Okay, we can move on from this.
Yeah.
We don't need to know here.
Before we move on to our Matt Ioannidis interview, I said before we started recording that so this week Kyle has another Zoom costume on. He has the John Lennon-esque glasses on, but I told him that he looked more like 2026 Bono than he did John Lennon, and your response was,
It wasn't nice. It wasn't nice. I didn't welcome that.
I meant it as a compliment. I mean, Bono's got short hair now. I mean, it's shortish. Yeah.
Shortish. I'm not accepting this premise. I think I look more like John Lennon, who Colin is unaware of what he looks like.
Colin hates this bit. I'm told that Colin hates this bit. As I said at the outset of the show, I was fortunate enough to talk to Matt Ioannidis, one of the better defensive tackles and the better defensive linemen in Temple football history. Played 7 years in the NFL, 25 and a half sacks to his career, and talked about a little bit of everything here, his life in the NFL, getting the chance to play for his former head coach in the NFL and Matt Rhule, what life is like in retirement. He shared his thoughts on NIL, revenue share. We got into a little bit of everything here. So longer interview, but a ton of great insight from Matt. Really appreciate his time. And then we'll, of course, have a lot more for you on the other side. We're going to get into Temple hoops, men's and women's hoops, what's going well for those teams right now. And we've got answers to your mailbag questions. We're very excited to have this week's guest on the Scoop. He played 7 seasons in the NFL, finished his career with 25 and a half sacks. He was a first-team All-American Athletic Conference player in 2015. He'll go down as one of the very best players to ever wear a Temple football uniform. Now he's enjoying his retirement in Dillsburg, Pennsylvania. Matt Ioannidis, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast this week. How you doing? Happy New Year.
I'm doing well, man. Happy New Year. Thanks for having me.
No problem. I kind of want to work backwards on this in telling your story. Tell us how life is like for you in retirement. And, you've done some volunteer coaching at Mechanicsburg High School, and you're settled in Dillsburg, as we just said. What's retirement life like for you?
Retirement's good now. I would say originally I was ready to retire, but I wasn't ready for retirement, if that makes any sense at all. It just, my body was shot and I'd had enough, but I didn't really have anything in line for that next chapter of life. But a few years have gone by now and gotten into the swing of things and feel a lot better. But yeah, I've been keeping busy, helping these guys at Mechanicsburg High School outside of Harrisburg, and gotten really into hunting, which has done a pretty good job of filling the void from football. So I've gotten connected with some people through my career and have kind of hunted all over and hunted a bunch here in PA. And so that's been good. And I'm actually starting a business out of my house here, building custom compound bowstring. So starting to hit the full swing of retirement here and then getting out of it right as things started to get comfortable again.
Growing up where you did in Jersey, I don't know, I guess, would you call that central Jersey? Like, is that something you did as a kid growing up, or did you get into it like later on in life?
No, not at all. Not at all. Growing up in New Jersey, didn't hunt a ton, didn't hunt at all. I might have went out a couple times when I was real young, but it wasn't until about my third year in the league where a teammate of mine in DC brought me down to a ranch. Really great guy, well connected in Texas, invited me and a couple other teammates down there to hunt. And from there, it really just took off. During the season, you never really get to hunt because you're playing.
Yeah.
But down there, they've got all these ranches that you can hunt exotics. So things like nilgai, where they're open year round, and pigs are open year round. So you can get down there just in time for deer, and then you get these other cool animals down there. So did that for 4 or 5 years in the league. But now that I've retired, I can kind of attack that thing full swing.
What's it like getting into like you said, getting into like the early stages of starting your own business? That sounds really cool.
It's a lot of stumbling through it. Just, I don't even know what mistakes I'm making. I'm making them, but I'm just trying to do all the right things. The NFLPA has like a through the trust, they have this like entrepreneurial leadership group, and so they've been helping out. But really, it's just spending a lot of time on Google and these AI platforms, kind of taking coaching from them.
Yeah, tell me about how you and your wife settled down in Dillsburg. We've texted about this. A lot of people have never heard of it before. Two of my good friends grew up there, and they told me about growing up around there and like the pickle drop that they do on New Year's Eve. Because you guys don't have ties to that area, but was it? You might have told me this at the spring game a couple of years ago. Was it kind of just like a good equidistant point between where you were finishing up, or you'd spent some time in Washington, and between where you grew up in Jersey? Was it a good halfway point? Tell us how do you wind up there?
Kind of a bunch of different reasons, but I would say namely Kyle Friend ended up being the best man at my wedding. He's from Carlisle, which is just one town over. And so from coming out here over the years, visiting him, I'd gotten kind of acquainted with the area. Both my brothers went to Dickinson, which is in Carlisle as well. Yeah. So I had been out here visiting them. And then when COVID hit, DC was just, I got to imagine, one of the worst places to be. We were living in a townhouse in Ashburn, and we had an end unit, and we just felt like we were living in a fishbowl, just stacked on top of people and just congested. And I didn't really agree with the whole severe masking choices, and so we moved up here, found a spot, just did a complete 180, went from a townhouse to a big 20-acre property piece. And things were a little bit more lax up here, and having 20 acres, you didn't have the issues that you had down there in DC. And so from our home there to our home here is about 99 miles. And so we could make it in an hour and a half, hour and 45. And it was in the middle of spring ball OTAs. And so we really weren't working. We were doing a lot of things on Zoom, and we basically just retreated to here as much as we could, just get away from the DC area.
Did you have that place built from scratch?
No.
Okay.
So we found this place on Zillow.
Okay.
And my wife and I were just at a brewery. We had just had our first son, and we were just sitting at a brewery one day, got the kid in the stroller next to us, just kind of taking a nap. And we were just thinking to ourselves, like, okay, we've started a family, we're married, we've started a family. We should probably get a home base. A lot of times in the league, a lot of guys don't live at their facility, where their facilities are year round, right? They have a house there, but then they also have a house back home. And we were like, all right, maybe we'll look into getting a place somewhere else that we can call home base. And we settled on this. We found it on Zillow. It wasn't even listed in the MLS. It's for sale by owner, and ended up knowing the guy through a friend of a friend, and went to closing like a week later.
Oh, wow. That's really cool.
So
I think one of my favorite experiences was getting the chance to catch up with a lot of the former players, but in particular, I just remember watching the second half of that game with you and Tyler, and just catching up with you guys as people more than anything else. And I remember you telling me back then, like, I think I just played my last season in the NFL, and I've never been in your shoes before. You had a great career. I'm sure you probably had people saying like, oh, you're still young, you're still in your late 20s. Can you tell people about how you arrive at that decision? Because it's so important. I can't imagine what goes through your head at that time.
Yeah, so my last year in Washington was my second to last year in the league, and my back was starting to give me issues,
Hmm.
and we really didn't even know what it was. It was just my back was just constantly locking up, and made it through the season, ended up getting released, and then Matt Rhule made contact during free agency and ended up signing down there with them, which was awesome. Getting back down there with Dvorak and Saravo and Snow and all those guys. But through the course of that season, my back was just progressively getting worse. I mean, I missed a couple of games, but it was a lot of just playing through it, and ultimately ended up getting the diagnosis down there where at the end of the season the doctor said, hey, listen, if you play another season, you're most likely looking at a back surgery.
Hmm.
And my wife was pregnant with our second child at the time, and hearing that I was looking at a back surgery, and not like a minor one either, more of a severe back surgery. I think the answer became pretty clear then. It's time to hang him up. And there was a little bit of that like internal strife where I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, I'm still making good money in the league. As a Christian, I can't serve two masters. I can't serve God and money. And so that helped the decision there be a little clearer that, hey, I can't be greedy here. I can't put my future and ultimately like my kids' future, like in jeopardy by just going out and pursuing more money. So, projecting myself into the future, I was like, if I get a back surgery and, things don't go well and I got young kids and I don't really want to be, not disabled, but I don't want to be hampered by this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And so from there, I went into free agency and I told my agent, I'll play again, but I want an astronomical number that no one's going to pay
Yeah.
me. He was like, you're not going to get that. And I was like, I know.
Mhm.
But I'm just checking to see if there's any GMs out there that are, willing to spend an obscene amount of money for something that they're not going to get on the field.
Yeah. Wasn't there a story that you told me, it's if I can ask you this stuff now, wasn't there a scenario where you almost ended up with the Eagles, like Howie had reached out and it was a matter of them bringing Fletcher Cox back? Wasn't there a scenario where you could have ended up with the Eagles here in Philly?
Yeah, so when I got released, my agent had been in contact with Howie and the guys over at the Eagles, and it was right in the middle of Fletcher's. I don't want to get this wrong, but I think what was happening is they wanted Fletcher to take a pay cut, and he
Yeah.
refused. And then ultimately they stuck to their guns and said, all right, well, if you can't take this pay cut, then we're going to have to release you, which is where I was going to come in and fill the void. And what ended up happening was credit to the Eagles, because I guess what happened was the owner came back and said, well, Fletcher went back to them and after he'd been released and said, you know what, maybe I'll consider taking a pay cut.
Mhm.
And so credit to the Eagles, credit to Howie and the owner there. He said, this guy was with us during our Super Bowl championship. He's been a first round pick of ours. He's played well for us, but let's try and do right by this guy. So they ended up signing him back, which closed the door for me there, which was fine because I ended up in Carolina and, the money was comparable. But yeah, it would have been interesting coming home, going back to the link. I love Philly. My wife and I had a ton of fun while we were there. It was always fun coming back and playing on the link. So when that one didn't work out, that kind of sucked. But everything happens for a reason.
I'd have to imagine, at the risk of putting words in your mouth, when you get that clarity and say, okay, it's time to step away. Did you have a lot of peace with the decision? Because I'm sure you guys at Temple, you get sick of hearing this, but you and Tyler and all these other guys that ended up in the league, former two-star recruits for whatever that's worth, you played 7 years in the league, you reached that second contract, you kept going, you became one of the better interior defensive linemen in the whole league. Are you able to look back at that and say, man, I'm pretty proud of what I accomplished?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm proud of my body of work. I think I played well, and I don't think anyone really ever truly walks away and says, did I leave a little bit of meat on the bone out there? There's always plays you want to get back or
Yeah.
games, X, Y, or Z. But, ultimately, like, God has blessed me with an incredible wife and two healthy children and all these different things in my life. And I try not to go back and live with any regrets or say like the beginning of the seasons are always a little bit tough. Football's back on Sundays and you think like, oh, should I have kept playing? And it always comes back to no, this was meant to be this way. And so I have peace about it. There's the competitor in you that those thoughts can always creep up, but ultimately no, I feel good about the decision retire when I did.
You referenced, of course, going back to being able to play with Matt, Phil, and Rob Dvorak, all the Temple guys. Yeah, Matt got let go, and was it exciting at first? And then, just living through it, things didn't turn out the way you guys wanted. Was it kind of a bittersweet season for you, just being able to get reunited with those guys, but things not working out on the field?
It was awesome being down there with them. That's kind of an interesting scenario where you get to play for your head coach at two different levels. So that was really unique, really cool. Part of it is also that, you play 6 seasons in one team, right? I was at Temple for 3.5 years, graduating and then heading down to Florida. And then you end up nearly doubling your time at one school, at one team in the league. And so when the opportunity came up in Carolina, when I got released to go and see just how another NFL organization functions, that was cool. So between that and then going down there and being reunited with those guys was awesome. And yeah, it sucked when Matt got fired, when Coach Rhule got fired. That sucked because I think all those guys down there in Carolina appreciated him.
Mm-hmm.
I think the guys on the team liked him and respected him. But my relationship with him, some of the other Temple guys on the team, our relationships are just inherently different. We knew him from a previous staff. And so it hurt a little bit more for some of us, the Temple guys and the Baylor guys down there for that reason. But yeah, I think that probably made it a little bit different for us guys.
What was it like playing for him as a NFL head coach as opposed to a college head coach? Because I'm sure everybody had opinions on like, okay, he was successful in college. Here's what he did well in the NFL. Here's what he could have done differently. Was he the same guy? Did he have to coach guys differently? What was the experience like for you?
I was interested in finding that out when I first signed there in free agency. I said, I wonder how he's going to run this program. I obviously know he runs a college program, but how's he going to do in the NFL? And I thought he did an awesome job kind of changing up his style to match what NFL guys need and are acquainted to. I thought he did an awesome job, players responding to him and him coaching NFL guys. Yeah, I was fired up when I got down there, and you see it's tough, right? Because I don't want to I played for Rhule. He's known me since I was a teenager, but so it's it's a weird thing to say oh, I was proud of him. You know what I mean? Because he's been such an authoritative figure in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was cool to see him make that progression and grow and change and become that NFL head coach.
Going back to your career in Washington, so you were drafted in the 5th round. I think sometimes people forget, given the fact that you eventually became one of the better defensive tackles in the league, that you were initially put on the practice squad before you get called up to the active roster when Kedrick Golson got hurt. And, you're a 5th round pick. It's not always a guarantee that you make the team. So before you became one of the better players in the league, what do you remember from that first camp and that first season?
Yeah, that first camp was brutal. I remember, we were a 4-3. I was a 3 technique. So you're dealing with all these different changes coming from college to the NFL, but then to have your position change, because they ultimately made me a 3-4 nose.
Mm-hmm.
They put a bunch of weight on me, and I wasn't too gapping, but I was playing a real heavy shaded, tilted nose, and ended up not making the team coming out of training camp. Got put on the practice squad, and I was bitter. I mean, I was angry. When you get to the league as a rookie in the spring, you see all these vets, and they're not like the rest of us, right? As rookies, they're men. They've got marriages and kids and mortgages, and you realize pretty quickly how real the league is. And one of the things I always remember thinking to myself was man, these guys are salty, not bitter and angry, but kind of salty vets, right? They had seen the business side of it, and I didn't understand that. And then I got cut, and I quickly got a crash course on this is a business. We always say we always used to say in college football, this is our job and this is a business, but at that level it truly is. And so kind of being forced to have that, or kind of having that education forced upon me, I really look back on that and think that was one of the best things that ever happened to me. I don't think I would have had the perspective that I played with the next 6-7 years without that experience, and everything ended up working out. And so it's kind of easy for me to say that, I suppose, but as much as that sucked and I didn't appreciate that, I think it was one of the best things to ever happen to me in my career.
What clicked for you in those second and third seasons? Was it a matter of just adjusting, like you just referenced, like, hey, we're going to put a ton of weight on you, and I'm sure that's not easy. Was it just learning to play with that weight, just getting more reps? What took off for you in those second and third seasons?
So a couple of things, right? I'm a big believer that God puts people in our lives for his reasons and in his timing. And what had ended up happening is our defensive staff had kind of rolled over. We hired a new DC. That DC brought in a defensive line coach named Jim Tomsula.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Tomsula is the best defensive line coach I've ever been around. Just phenomenal, right? And he brought all these different techniques and styles and, approaches to the game that I'd never even considered before. And he moved me, we were still a 3-4, but they moved me out to play that 4-eye.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, hey, listen, you're too heavy. Those aren't the words he used, but he said, you're too heavy. Get the weight off you. You're going to go play defensive line or defensive end. We're going to leverage things. We're going to play 3-man surfaces and 2-man surfaces. And we're going to move you around 4-eye, 5, go play some 6-eye. And that really clicked with me. Playing in that scheme, I realized over the course of my career that the scheme that fits me best is that 3-4. I got drafted coming out of Temple playing that 4-3 downhill D tackle 3 technique, but that playing real heavy style of a 3-4 really just fits my abilities. So, with his coaching, that position change again, that new scheme, that was awesome. That helped a ton. There was a pastor or team pastor in Washington. His name was Brett Fuller. This is the other thing I credit it to, is he kind of saw me in my rookie year just kind of starting to get angry and sour and stuff. And he took me under his wing and he saw that I needed guidance. And I wasn't yet like fully on board as a Christian yet. I mean, my buddy Kyle had brought me to Bible studies at Temple, and I'd continued to go, and I'd had some really good conversations over the years with like Damir Shaw and Eric Fargo. And the seed had been planted, but when I got there, Brett Fuller saw that I was kind of lost and needed that help. And so he started just meeting with me once a week, and we would go through scripture, and he would kind of just guide me in life and in football, and really appreciative to the Lord for putting those two people in my life.
That's really cool. Not that it's all about sacking the quarterback, but you did it well from that position. Do you remember your first sack and who it came against and who you put on the ground?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it was Carson Wentz in Philly.
Oh, there you go.
Season opener 2017. I think I split the sack with Ryan Kerrigan, and honest to God, I think Ryan Kerrigan saved that, because had he not converged on the quarterback when I did, I wouldn't have gotten that sack. Carson saw him coming and kind of just fell, and we both met him at the same time, but Carson would have gotten past me.
You did it. You're very good in college. When it hits you and you get your first sack in the NFL, what's the feeling, or do you think about that after the game? Because I'm sure you can't like sit there and reflect on it. You got to go to the next play. But can you enjoy it at all to be like, wow, this is cool?
Yeah, I mean, going back to how it's truly a business, it's this weird dynamic in the NFL where, the teams, understandably so, they want to win, right? Owners want to win, head coaches want to win, GMs want to win, players want to win. But at the same time, for us, it's a production-driven league. And so it's this weird line you have to walk between wanting to play really well so that when it comes time for your second contract, you can take a stab at big money, and also solely wanting to win. It's kind of this weird blend of both. And so when you have a sack, like people have said in the past, and the numbers have changed with the caps being what they are now, but, sacks used to roughly equivalent to $1 million, right? When you go into a contract year, it's more than that now, but all of those are you're building your resume. So every sack you have is going towards your next contract. And so, yeah, you win or you lose. Sacks are hard to come by in the NFL, and so there's always a little bit of that. Hey, I'm happy I got one. You could be a little happier on the wins for sure, but yeah, that's tough. It's a tough position you're in as a player.
Who was the best offensive lineman you ever played against in your career?
I think an easy one to point to is Trent Williams. I played with him and I played against him.
Yeah.
So I played against him when he was in San Fran. I played with him when he was in Washington. Guards, I mean, I played against, I'm drawing a blank on his name now. The cat that was the right guard for the Eagles, or the Cowboys for a number, Zach Martin.
Oh, okay.
Played against the Colts, Quentin Nelson, but I played on the other side of the line. Me and John and Payne, we kind of picked sides. So he played the other guard. I usually tended to play against the right guard. Kelsey, obviously at center in Philly, that was always a grind. His speed just kind of sets him apart from everybody else. Yeah, I mean, I joke with some buddies of mine because everyone always likes to talk about like what was the heyday of NFL football, and people can point to the 70s, 80s, 90s, whenever. But the way I think about it now is like, and I'm biased because I played in this current era, but every team has just, you know, a stud offensive lineman, a stud receiver, a stud running back. Like the rosters are littered with freak athletes now. And so there's no easy weeks in the NFL ever. I think you look at the margin in any of these games on Sundays and it's always close. Like very rarely do you get like these big blowouts. And so I think that's in large part to like, there's going to be good offensive linemen, good tight ends on almost every team. Like it's really rare. So that's kind of my cop-out answer of who's the best.
Was there a guy that talked, I don't even know if offensive linemen do it as much, because I don't know, again, from my removed perspective, maybe they're thinking too much about like looking at who's coming from where and calling out protections and stuff. But was there a lineman that you ever played against that was just really good at talking trash and backing it up?
Not really. I mean, I think, again, I'm biased. I think a lot of the trash talking happens on the outside where the game's not as physical, but inside generally, you know, I don't want to say it's respectful in there, but you know, the NFL is a business, and guys understand that our bodies are our business, and so typically things don't get to that level where guys are talking like ruthless trash out there, because you never know if someone's going to take a shot at you, and you know, you go down with a knee or an ankle or anything like that when tensions get high, and so it happens for sure. But that was never really my style, and so whenever I never really paid it any mind if anyone was out there talking trash, and people didn't tend to talk trash to me at least. So,
Did you ever have anybody in the league, like early on in your career, kind of just like come over to you after a game or even after like some point stoppage in the game, be like, hey man, I played against you before, like just like threw a compliment your way where you were like, oh wow, this is really cool.
well, there's always second Andrew Luck, right? Where, you know, he's going to give you that, hey man, good hit, like awful. But Aaron Rodgers, I can remember that. I think we were playing at home, and he just came up to me like they might have gotten like a 30-yard chip down the field, just a big chunk play. And you know, of course he says it when they're coming off a big play, but he'll just, you know, he walked past me on the sideline. He goes, hey man, in 98, like you're a heck of a player, dude.
Oh.
And so that was cool. It was kind of like not an I've arrived moment, but where you kind of realize, or you know what it does? It kind of takes away that like imposter syndrome when you're getting a compliment like that from Aaron Rodgers as like a young player in the league, kind of still on the ascend, and a guy like that comes up and he's like, hey man, you're a heck of a player, like fun playing against you. Like that's a cool moment.
And this kind of takes me back to now getting into the Temple stuff. Again, I feel like if for whatever rankings are worth, and sometimes I think they're on point and sometimes I think they're way off, but a lot of the Temple guys that got into the league, you were not choosing between LSU and Alabama and Notre Dame. Do you think you appreciate those moments even more when an Aaron Rodgers says something to you like that? Because like so many of you guys, just cheesy and cliche as it sounds, like kept that chip on your shoulder, kept that humility, as opposed to maybe like a five-star guy who was choosing between like Miami, Indiana, all those programs. Do you think is part of that just inherently you, or like, wow, Aaron Rodgers just said something to me? Is that, or does that come from just kind of like where you came from, just like taking step after step coming out of Temple?
I don't know. I've never really thought about it. I think if I had to say, it would be just that, like, you know, Aaron's played 20 something years in this league, and you know, so you watch him growing up, and all of a sudden you're playing against these guys you've watched on TV since, you know, you were 14. So there's that factor, I think, is probably what it is. Yeah, I don't think it's so much the chip on your shoulder. I remember being at the Senior Bowl, and you get a jersey and you get all your equipment, but you wear your own helmet. So you're looking around and you're seeing the Alabama A on people's helmets, and you're seeing Clemson and all these other schools and Notre Dame, and coming from Temple, it's kind of like I had this moment where I was like, oh wow, like I'm here playing against these other, Power 5 conference schools. And very quickly you realize like, oh, we're all just guys, right? Like we're the best of our best from our conference, and like the best from our conference could be the same as the best from their conference, right? Like take Hassan Reddick, for example, like first round pick, what do you like 13th overall or something? Like if you're there at that level, I learned early on, if you're there at that level, it doesn't matter what school you came from. The only thing you don't have is bragging rights in the locker room because, Clemson, Alabama, you name it, they're going to be playing in that tournament at the end of the year, and we're not.
Matt, what got you into the game growing up? Was it something early on, or did you, and if I probably asked you this question before years ago and forgot, but what got you into football when you were a kid?
Nothing out of the ordinary. I think parents just signed me up. Me and my brothers are always big kids. And so, you kind of got to put that energy somewhere. And so they put us in flag football, and then we came up through Pop Warner and high school and whatnot. So kind of a very run of the mill, like average, just, a kid playing Pop Warner football story there.
When it came time to picking Temple, who else was in the mix in your recruitment there?
Not a heavily recruited guy, as I imagine most Temple guys are or aren't. I remember I didn't watch a ton of football growing up. Like grandma, we'd go to my grandma's house and they'd have NFL football on. They were Giants fans, but I didn't really care for football. It was just something we did. It was a social thing. I was good at it, but it was never something where I intended to go play college or in the NFL. And so I didn't really have a grasp of like the college divisions beyond defensive D1, right? And so I ended up as a junior whittling my schools down to Temple or UDEL.
That's right. Yeah.
I had other MAC schools. Temple was still Big East at the time, and so I thought that was cool. I knew that was a step above the MAC, but I had MAC schools. I mean, Buffalo and a couple of those schools out in Ohio. But I had whittled it down just based on relationship with the coaches and then touring the campus. I thought, Temple's good. I liked my recruiting coordinator there who recruited me. And
who was the lead guy on you at the time?
It was Ben Albert.
That's right.
Yep, he was the outside linebacker, like defensive end coach. I ended up in Sean Cronin's room, who was the D tackle coach, but he had my area because he was from I think he was from Patterson, New Jersey, so he had New Jersey for recruiting. But yeah, Temple or UDEL. I mean, I wasn't really plugged into, hey, one's D1 or 1A and one's 1AA. I kind of just was going with what I liked.
Obviously, things turned out well for you. You get drafted, but did you ever think of what might have happened had Steve Addazio not burned your red shirt for 20 snaps if you got an extra year in college?
Yeah. I remember thinking about that as a rookie when I had gotten cut. I was like, I probably could have used another year of college in the weight room.
I remember fans being so like, around that time, they're like, oh my God, can you imagine? I mean, look, 2016, they go on, win the conference championship. But I remember hearing from fans like, can you imagine this defensive line if Ioannidis was around for another season, 20 snaps? Are you kidding me? I always wondered how you thought about that.
Yeah, in hindsight, looking back, I should not have played my freshman year. I mean, I think a lot of it came down to Addazio either knew he was leaving or maybe didn't know he was leaving yet, like hadn't signed pen to paper, but kind of knew Temple wasn't going to be a spot for him. And he just said, I don't care if what we do with these kids' red shirts, like I'm going to be gone before it matters.
That was about right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I look back and say, okay, everything happens for a reason. Everything worked out. But if you look at it just purely from a football sense of like, was this guy ready to play? Then no, I was not ready to play as a freshman. I shouldn't have.
What was your first impression of Matt Rhule when he comes to Temple and replaces Steve?
I hadn't even met Coach Rhule. I mean, if I had, it was once in passing as a recruit. But one of my roommates, a couple of my roommates, had him as their recruiting coordinator because he had Central Pennsylvania, and so they all knew him. Like he recruited them personally, and so I would hear all these stories about him, and you would hear from the upperclassmen. But I'd still never met him, so it was kind of like a mystery to me. I was in the dark there. And then when you met him, like clearly, very early on, you realize like, okay, deeply intense person, driven and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, as a freshman, at least from my perspective, I mean, I'd been there for four months maybe, and Matt Rhule or Addazio got fired before or left for Boston College before the season even ended. Like, my head was just in a daze. Like I didn't know what was happening.
Talk me through like some of those early moments, because before 2015, 2016, you're going at that point, but before things really took off, there were those building moments. There was the game against Fordham where people were like, how did they lose this game? But like there were just those obstacles that you guys just kept working through and had to have faith. Like what was it like navigating some of those early moments where you had to like just believe even though you weren't seeing some of the initial results?
I think of those moments a lot like getting cut as a rookie. Like we just needed to go through them. Like they made us better. And yeah, it sucks. Nobody wants to go 2-10. And the winter workouts following that 2-10 season were brutal. And I don't think I could do those again if I wanted to. But I think we needed to go through them. And I think ultimately like it woke all of us up on the team to the reality of like this is going to take a lot of work, which prepped us. And I think it challenged the coaching staff. And so between us challenging ourselves and them challenging us and them challenging themselves, like that was about as good of a response to adversity as I think a college football program can go through.
Back in the fall, I put out just all these interviews that I had done from that 2015 season and the Penn State win, the Notre Dame game, and I just released them earlier this fall. And one of the things I remember Matt talking to me about was the way that Penn State win was set up was you guys lose to them the year before, and Julie and his kids stayed behind in State College. He came back to Philly and went to church the next morning, and he started ruminating about it. Like, how are we going to beat them again? He started thinking about that 80 Olympic team, and it all lined up well because you guys opened against them. So you couldn't have been guilty of like, oh, we're looking down the schedule. It was like off season comes and it's like Penn State's that first game. And the way that you guys just systematically like broke them down, it just really all came together in such a cool way. Was it the perfect storm for you guys to just with that game being the opener where like there was build up and you could really say, hey, we are taking it one game at a time, and it is Penn State? Because again, you fall behind 10-0. And I want to ask you about this too, because I remember Phil Snow said, I told the guys, we're going to fall behind 10-0. And then it's exactly what happened. But did it just perfectly align that that was the first game for you guys?
Yeah, I think the way I look back at that is, okay, we came out at the beginning of the 2014 season and we beat Vanderbilt, right? So here's an AAC school coming in, playing an SEC school and winning game one, right? So that gave us the experience. That gave us the reps, like saying to ourselves, okay, we can go out and beat Penn State. We've done it. We've beaten an SEC team. Now, granted, that wasn't a great Vanderbilt team, but still to be on that stage,
Yeah.
we had done that before.
Game got done at like 1 a.m. too. That was like the lightning delay game.
Yes, it's so humid down there. I'd never felt humidity like that either. I think coming back together as that cohesive defensive unit, I think maybe we lost one starter or two starters on defense. So we knew from the previous season. So I think we knew like, okay, this is our chance. Like we got to strike while the iron's hot here. And so there were just all these different pieces that came together. And looking back, I mean, Phil Snow had that wisdom to say, okay, they're going to come out on a script that they've been practicing all year and all training camp, and they're going to go up 10-0. I certainly didn't have that wisdom, and a lot of the other guys on the team, we probably didn't. But yeah, it was. I can see now in hindsight how that all came together for various reasons. But yeah, I mean, just what a wild ride to have that be the season opener there in 2015.
How much fun was it just to see? I think maybe I talked to you about this before, talking to Tyler about it as the game goes on, and you see, I'm sure you guys saw Christian Hackenberg getting pissed off and yelling at his line. Is that just like blood in the water for you guys? We're like, well, we got him.
Yeah, it is. You see, you start to see an offense turn on each other like that, and the game is essentially in the bag. And then you kind of got to deal with the sideline issues of like the coach can kind of feel the laxness on the sideline. Like he thinks that we think that the game is over. And so you kind of got to go through that song and dance, but which is the right thing to do. But I think, what was it, like mid third quarter? By then, like we had all pretty well understood, like we're going to beat the brakes off these guys. Like this is going to be a bloodbath and we're not going to pull up.
Did you guys ever get the sense like during the game, because like, you're living in Penn State country right now, and the Penn State they're like, it's kind of like Notre Dame. You got people who didn't even go to Penn State to become Penn State fans. And yes, there were Penn State fans there that day, but there were so many Temple fans there. And there are people still to this day for a program like Temple who are like, that might have been the greatest day of my life as a Temple fan, to be able to finally say we beat them. And then that groundswell is happening in the crowd. How much of that did you guys allow yourself to pay attention to look around and be like, wow, this is really like, I mean, there were fans after the game like crying, leaving the game because they're like, this is great. Like, how much of that did you guys get to start to appreciate as it got closer and closer to the clock reading 0 in the fourth quarter?
I can't remember that as much as I can remember thinking, I think, what was it, 64 years Temple hadn't beaten Penn State, something like that.
72, I think, since the World War II era. Yeah.
Yeah. Not that they played every year, but it had been that amount of time since they had won. And I remember like really hyper focusing on that, like, holy smokes, like it's been a long time since we've done this, and here we are. I think I can remember like Nate D. Smith like going over to the band and directing. What was that person called who sits up there and
just the conductor, the band leader.
Conductor, yeah. I can remember things like that, but yeah, those thoughts of looking around the stadium, no, because I think at the time, like, I don't want to call it brainwashing, right? But we were in a very specific headspace coming out of that training camp. We're like, we expected to win that game.
Yeah.
And I think where we were was saying, like, don't be surprised by the fans. Don't be surprised by, any of these other factors that are not on this field, because this is what we expect.
And then the Notre Dame game, the one that got away, when you look back at it, how did you guys, I think you managed it well because you almost won the game, but how did you manage the craziness of like, you had to, all the wins that got you there, you almost lost it. You needed a couple plays to beat UMass. You beat Cincinnati. You didn't let up. You beat ECU. Then College GameDay is coming to Philly. This is a pro sports town. If Nick Sirianni blows his nose, people want to know what it looks like. This is not like, it's not a college football town. And the Eagles were on a bye, and you guys turned it into a college football town, and you almost won that game. How did you guys stay sane during that time?
I don't know that we did. I don't know that we didn't, but I can remember you just go into this overdrive mode of like, focus on the game, focus on the game, focus on the game, until it becomes this just mantra in your head that you're repeating, and you're just trying to block out all the noise. And Kevin Nagandi's in the building, and you're sitting down in the Owl Club doing breakfast, and like it does creep in, like there is a part of you where like Temple hadn't been on that stage before. And I think a lot of that stuff is a distraction leading up to the game, but I think very quickly you realize when that ball is kicked off, all of that fades away, and it just becomes football again. There were probably guys that it didn't impact them. There were probably guys that it did, and for them to varying degrees. But I think the team ultimately did a good job of like clocking in on that Saturday night and just playing ball. I mean, we didn't come out with the win, but I don't think the distraction lasted beyond kickoff.
One of the things I remember as a writer, and for your sake, I wish you guys would have won the game. I think the link probably would have burned to the ground that night. Like if Will Hayes takes a different angle on Will Fuller, but like I just remember watching the game, looking at specific plays with my binoculars and watching like praise and different guys going up against Ronnie Stanley and like just talent against talent, and you guys matching them. You kind of hit on it already, but what was that moment like where you guys, again, you had already beaten Penn State, and you guys were perfect to that point. What was it like just going up? I mean, they had a good roster, 2 top 25 teams, and you're going up against, again, like good offensive linemen, guys that eventually get into the league. Was that another moment in your career for a guy who just said a few minutes ago, like, I grew up, had football around in the house, and, some of my family were Giants fans, and all of a sudden, whoa, I'm now this really, really good player in this huge national stage. Was that another moment? Do you ever look around and be like, holy crap, like how did I get here? This is pretty cool.
No, because I think at the time, maybe I'm not using this term correctly, but I think at the time I still had like imposter syndrome, or like hadn't really like understood that I was a top player yet, After my junior year, there had been a couple of agents reach out. And so I thought, okay, listen, maybe I'll end up in a training camp, but I didn't expect to be drafted yet. And I think Rhule did a good job of keeping us all very humble. during our senior years. I mean, it probably was a little bit tougher with Tyler Matakevich being as decorated as he was, but I think for the most part, like, Rhule kept us very humble, and not in the sense that like he beat us down and berated us, but like it was always about the team. It was never about any one individual. He was always very strict about saying like, hey, like focus on football. Like if the NFL is in your cards, that'll come when it's time, but it's not time yet. I remember as a young player at Temple watching some of the upperclassmen anticipate going to the NFL, and it never worked out for them. And I think it was because they always had one foot out the door. And so for a lot of us, it was just that mindset of like, we're here now. We didn't pay attention to a ton of the stuff online, the chat forums or Twitter or whatnot. I don't think I had that perspective of looking around on that Saturday night, like, you know, I've arrived.
Who do you still stay in touch with from your playing days at Temple?
So my three roommates, Dvorak, who's at Nebraska now with Rhule, Kyle Friend, who's in Pittsburgh, and then my buddy McGowan, who's outside the Philadelphia area.
Yeah.
You see Tyler when you see Tyler, you know, different Temple events. We'll touch base a couple times a year. Dion, I played against Dion a number of times in the league. So really it just came down to guys I would see, you know, with varying degrees of frequency. Dogby, Julian's at the NFLPA now.
Yeah.
Not as many as you think when you first graduate.
Yeah.
You first graduate, you think you're going to be like, okay, these are I still love all those guys, but I've learned as an adult now with the kids, like time grinds on you and time wears on you, and it wears on relationships.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I've got a mailbag question from one of our readers, one of our subscribers. And his question is, how can Temple football remain competitive in the revenue share and portal era? And can former players play a role in helping Temple there?
So I don't understand this new landscape of college football, you know, revenue sharing and, you know, NIL money. It's not the era that I came from, but I have had conversations about trying to help Temple, and ultimately I don't know how Temple is going to be able to fund their NIL funds and pay these players. I think Philly's an awesome market to tap into. Comcast is right there, and I've even heard people say, okay, well, what if we go up and we find some hedge fund guy who wants to essentially buy a team and find some hedge fund guy in New York. I don't think Temple football players, no matter how high they climb in the NFL, are really responsible for the money portion there at Temple. I always think about all of us who've played in the league as lottery winners. We have a chance to strike while the iron's hot, and we play and we make as much money as we can. But ultimately, when we're done, we're not making more of it. And so for fans to hope that we will be the ones footing the bill, I think is unrealistic, because it's not a sustained income. How would we know if we wanted to pool all of our money and say, hey, this is our year, let's take a shot at it? Well, also, once you start spending that money, like, that becomes the standard, right? Like, there's no putting that. People expect that money year after year. And so I don't think it should fall on the fans. I don't think it should fall on the former players. Like, if they want to donate, that's fine. I just personally, I mean, there's no amount of money that I could give that's going to be able to compete with Ohio State or, you know, Nebraska or USC. Like, Temple's just not that market. And so I think it's going to come from tapping into like that Comcast, going up to New York, finding one of these big businesses.
Do you ever think of, I'm sure, I guess you probably have thought of it, not only like, you know, and again, I know you're very, you come across as very grateful for what you have, and you played 7 years in the league, but do you ever think back to like the money that you might have made as a college football player? And also, not only that, how you guys would have handled that culture? Because I think sometimes people flippantly say, well, it's up to the coaches to manage expectations in the locker room. But at the end of the day, people talk, and player X might know what player Y is making. And if player Y has a bad game, player X might say, well, hey, I deserve what he's making. Like, there's just so much that goes into it. Do you ever think of what the culture of a 2015 Temple locker room might have been during, like, not just NIL getting deals, but like now every player is getting directly paid? Do you think of what the culture would have been like and how you guys might have handled that or policed that?
I'm reluctant to say that we would have handled it better, because I think that's just unrealistic, right? In a perfect world, I would say, oh, we were a tight group, and Coach Rhule would have kept us on the straight and narrow there and kept it all about ball and kept the business out of it. But this landscape is so different now. Honest to God, I have no idea. I mean, I can look back, and I've thought about this a lot from my perspective. Like, staying at Temple, had money been offered to me by Penn State or Clemson or Syracuse, like staying at Temple would have been the best thing for me, not jumping at the money. And I think everyone's essentially got a price, right? Like, if we're talking about some sort of like high six-figure life-changing money, then, you know, we've got families and stuff. Even at that age, like, people have families that could use the money. So I don't fault anyone for leaving, right? If a guy at Temple is making 10 grand or so now, and someone offers him 300 grand, like, I'm not going to fault that kid for going.
Right.
I don't know what we would have done. But that being said, my message to those guys there is like, Temple is a nurturing place to be, in the sense that you can develop there. When you take that money and you go somewhere else, you are expected to be developed. They are buying a product and they want it on the field on Saturdays. And if you do not provide that, I don't know how these contracts are structured. Can that money be pulled out from under you? I don't know. But my understanding is that you can continue to develop and grow. And yeah, listen, if we're talking about betting on yourselves the way guys do in the league, and you say, hey, listen, I'm not going to take this extension. I'm going to test myself in the free market, in the free agency market, which a lot of guys do. It's like, this is the same thing to me. Stay at Temple. Don't make as much money as if you could leave and go somewhere else, if you can, right? If you don't have the circumstances that require you to leave and take the money. Because the money in the college NIL world is never going to be what it is in the NFL.
Yeah.
It's just not. The salary cap's too high. They have to spend a certain percentage of it. Like, your rookie minimums these days are $1 million. So you're going to jump at $100,000, go somewhere where they're not going to continue to develop you, where they're not going to continue to push you because they think the money is doing that. And maybe we're not all motivated by the money, even though we leave because of it. But ultimately, like, what made you successful at Temple with no money is that spark still going to be there when you go somewhere when they're paying you 300 grand, or you're just going to get complacent. So that's kind of my long-winded answer there.
Yeah, I think that you probably just bottled up the recruiting pitch for every group of 5 program out there, whether it's Temple, whether it's Tulane, whether it's North Texas, or whether it's like Toledo, in that you can go, like you said, maybe take 300, 400 grand at Ohio State or Florida State, and you go there and no one's going to fault you for taking the money, but you're just a guy there. Whereas, like, you can stay where you are and develop. And if you're good, the NFL is going to find you where it's going to find you. Do you feel like that's the case? I feel like you have that wisdom. The NFL found you as a 5th-round draft pick. You turned it into a 7-year career. There are guys all over the league that come from big schools, small schools. Is that as true as people say it is?
Yeah, you're exactly right. The NFL is going to find you where they find you, right? And I think a lot of times guys get lost and they think, okay, well, my chances of getting drafted at Temple or Toledo or Buffalo are not as high as if I go to Wisconsin or you know, Cal or Oregon. Like, listen, statistically, do more guys get drafted out of those conferences? Yeah, maybe, right? Like, but ultimately, like I said earlier about the Senior Bowl, once you're there, it doesn't matter where you came from. And if you're good enough at Temple to get there, then you're good enough at Temple to get there. If you're good enough at Auburn to get there, then you're like, it's tough because I remember getting drafted. When there were college position coaches that came in to do visits, or if I went out to a team to do a visit, yeah, they wanted to see the Temple Penn State game or the Temple Notre Dame game, right? So they can weight those games heavier, but ultimately they're still looking at the other games, and they're not going to say, listen, we're going to draft this guy solely off of his Penn State tape. They're looking at your whole body of work. Yeah. And if you look at a guy like Hassan Reddick, right? Like, smart player, freak athlete, played hard, ran, jumped, like, did everything at a really high level. It didn't matter that he was from Temple, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it really doesn't, in my mind, the likelihood of a guy going from a school like Temple to one of these group of 4 or Power 4 conference now, whatever it is, if you're not truly ready for that and you've got 3 years left, continue to stay at Temple and peak when it's time. Like, if you're in the NFL and you get drafted and you have a phenomenal rookie year, right? You have a phenomenal second year. And then your next 2 years before free agency, you just lay an egg, you're not getting paid.
Yeah.
So the same thing goes at Temple, right? You come out, you play as a true freshman, you play as a sophomore, someone hits you with a $300,000 offer, and you go take it, and then you kind of just putter out there.
Yeah.
Well, they're not going to draft you into the NFL because you were really good 3 years ago at Temple. They're going to draft you off your senior tape. So peak when it's time, meaning stay at Temple and develop. And in your senior year, make hay. Like, go out there and dominate. There's an argument to be made where it's, hey, it's better to be a big fish in a small pond, right? Like, you want to stand out on tape. Well, stand out in the AAC. Dominate that conference. Because once you get to the league, it doesn't matter. Like, yeah, there's going to be pedigree where someone says, okay, this guy's a first-round pick. Those guys are going to get more chances. But, hey, accept that. That's the reality, right? They drafted you in the first round. They're going to get more chances than you are. They've got higher pedigree. But the league is built on the backs of, like, third through fifth, sixth round picks, right? Like, first round picks, especially, like, quarterbacks are like hit or miss.
So many skill guys. Yeah, it's a great point.
A lot of the guys in the NFL are those mid-round picks.
Matt, beyond your time as a really successful football player at Temple, I think one of the things that stands out to me is you really connected with Temple beyond football. And I mean that sincerely, because your name still comes up. You know, some of the people I talk to at Klein College, they smile when they talk about you, whether it's a Scott Gratson or another faculty member or people just around the building. You connected with people on campus beyond football, and people still talk about the player you were, the person you were, and the way you treated people. So it might sound like a simple question, but beyond football and having fun and winning games, why do you think you connected so well with the university? Because I'm a big believer that you learn a lot about somebody and how people talk about someone after they leave, and people talk about you very favorably beyond the football player that you were.
No, I appreciate you saying that. And I think Coach Rhule has always preached to us to hold ourselves high, hang your head high, like, act with integrity, respect the people around you. And for all the people that helped me out over the years, I'm just incredibly grateful to them. I'm drawn towards good people who do things out of the goodness of their heart. And just as a Christian, we're called to love our brothers and to be good to one another. And so a ton of appreciation for the people who helped me out. And I always just wanted to reciprocate and represent Temple football well to those people, to leave a place better than I found it. And that was something Coach Rhule always preached.
Well said. Matt, this was so much fun. You've given us so much of your time. I really, really appreciate it, and look forward to catch up with you soon. You think you're coming to the spring game this year?
Yeah, I would like to. I haven't looked at the calendar yet, but hopefully I can get down there.
I'm sure they know who you are. I'm sure you'll probably be able to get in down there, Dio. Well, thanks, man. I really, really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you. Appreciate you having me on here. It's good talking to you, dude.
You too. Thanks, man. All right. Again, great stuff from Matt Ioannidis. Hopefully we'll get the chance to see him at the spring game in April, but it's always great catching up with him. Again, a lot of interesting perspectives there, and on his 7-year NFL career, playing at Temple, what Temple means to him. So I hope you guys really enjoyed that as much as I did and getting the chance to talk to him. Let's talk about Adam Fisher's men's basketball team. So we said last week that we kind of started to learn a little bit more from the 2 losses that they had. So now they've beaten Rice and UTSA. And I think we can talk about what we've learned from these last 2 wins. And part of that is that this team is, not breaking any news here, but they're just going to have to lean on these top 4 players, Derrian Ford, Aiden Tobiason, Jordan Mason, and Gavin Griffiths, to get them through the day, and just hope that they can get some contributions from Jemai Phillip, Babatunde Dorodola, Messiah Gilliard, and Cam Wallace, because there's a big drop off there in production after that core 4. At one point in Saturday's game, they were trailing UTSA, which is not just the worst team in the American, but one of the worst teams in the country. They're trailing them by 10 before they came back. At Rice, 12 lead changes, never comfortable there. This is just what it's going to be. I think we can also say that if they don't get at least a top 4 seed in the conference tournament, that they're not going to have much of a shot at winning the tournament with this little depth. The number 3 or the number 4 seed, we've talked about this before, we put them right into the quarterfinals, so you don't have to win 3 games in 3 days. And then the number 1 seed and the number 2 seed puts you into the semifinals with a double bye, so it's just winning 2 games in 2 days. So I'll ask you guys this, based off of the body of work this year. We've talked about this a little bit already. What can we reasonably expect from Jemai Phillip, Babatunde Dorodola, or Cam Wallace or a guy like Messiah Gilliard. We know he gives them a lot of good rebounding, offensive rebounding the rest of the way, because unless a guy like Cam goes off, unless a guy like Messiah Gilliard goes off or Ababa goes off, they're not going to win these games on bench scoring unless one of these guys turns over a new leaf. So here they are. They're in a tie for second place right now. Charlotte's an important game Wednesday night. The league is there to be won. We've said that FAU probably has the best and most well-rounded roster in the league. But is there a guy from that group that can give them a little bit more? And if so, where do you think it comes from?
I kind of want to reject the premise. I mean, you texted me this on Saturday, and I was like, you're like, oh, well, I heard those four guys. Like, well, those four guys play 80%.
Sure. No, I'm mindful of the fact that, like, you've got a lot, like, four guards, four good scorers there. I'm not trying to, and you made a good point in countering that. Like, I'm not trying to, like, hey, they only have this. I mean, you make a good point there, but I'm asking, like, on a day where, like, like Gavin's hurt or banged up, or somebody has like a tough shooting day, there's not that instant offense guy off the bench, or you maybe suffer on a defensive matchup with one of your bigs. That's more.
Well, that's the thing is, that's the thing I kind of want to reject. Is I don't think they suffer when Felt's in there defensively. I mean, like defensively, like it's the difference of them defensively, interiorly with Felt on and Felt off is astronomical. But yes, like you're gonna have to rely on those cards, but they also just kind of run their offense through those cards anyway. If you're telling me like tomorrow there's gonna be this game where playing for 39 points, is there somebody that can pick it up and all of a sudden drop 20, 25 off the bench? No, like I don't think so, unless maybe Cam Wallace is just particularly hot one day and they just ride a hot hand. But like I think the guys that they do have coming off the bench or in those role positions, whether that's Messiah Gilliard or Felt or Babatunde, I think they each have like their own role and they each provide something different. Like I think 2 months ago you started to question what's Messiah Gilliard's role on this team. Like he's not really playing much at the beginning, and then I think since then they've done a good job of figuring out like he does bring like intensity, like he offensive rebounds out of the guard position. He can be kind of like a bulldog. So I don't think they have a instant offense guy off the bench, but I do think they have pieces off the bench.
Going off of like what Kyle said there too, like every player that's on the bench is just kind of like going to like fill out the role. If there is someone that could be comfortable with, is maybe Messiah, just because of his experience. Also, we've seen it at bits and times of him being able to like be a scorer a little bit. Not saying I like trust it for like a stretch of like 5 or 6 games. I'm not saying that, but if there was like a game or two, I could see it. Like even though they lost in November when they were down in Orlando, he had 2 games where he had double digits. In that UC San Diego game, very much felt like he was him keeping the team afloat when shots weren't able to fall in those core four guys, and that's still when they had AJ there. So I could trust him a little bit, but out of the main three, especially offensively, just not really. We've seen how Jemai plays on offense. It feels like there's just a lot of miscommunications. And then same with Cam Wallace. Not that I don't trust Cam, but the last 2 years when they've had like a freshman be able to take like a little bit more of like a scoring like jump a bit, like when we saw Aiden be able to like score when he was needed to, we knew that he had that ability to. And then even Zion 2 years ago, where he was scored really, really well in the beginning of the year, had that injury, was kind of taken out of the lineup a bit. So, but when he came back and he started scoring a little bit better towards that like end of early March into that conference tournament part, we had already kind of known that he had the ability to do so because he had done it a couple times ahead of that. We haven't really seen that from Cam, at least not too often, where I'm comfortable being like, okay, he can maybe make that next jump. That feels like something that wouldn't happen until like next year for me.
I think that's probably the trajectory that he was on, right? If you're expecting CJ Hines and AJ Smith to play a few DNPs here and there for Cam Wallace or normal. Now he actually didn't even play on Saturday at UTSA, right? So he's a guy that can knock down open shots. You'd hope that anybody you bring to this level can knock down open shots. But now we can definitively say now, AJ Smith out for the rest of the year. Next year. He's probably not coming back. CJ Hines dismissed from the program. And this is the roster. Next up, Charlotte at home, Wednesday night, 7 p.m. ESPN Plus game. Temple and Charlotte are two of the 4 teams that are tied for second place in the conference standings at 5-2. They're a half game behind FAU. So this is a big game. So since they lost to Temple back in the conference opener, the 49ers are 5-1 in those 6 games, with their only loss coming to Tulsa. Charlotte's coming off a 73-70 win over Tulane. They won despite giving up 35 points to Rowan Brumbaugh, who's still looking like the best player in the league, preseason conference player of the league. Maybe the biggest difference for Charlotte since Temple last played them is Dezane Mingo, their top guard off the bench. He had 7 points in 26 minutes when Temple and Charlotte last played back on December 30th. The very next game, he went off for 26 points in a double overtime win over Wichita State. Since that December 30th game, he's averaging 16.1 points per game, and he's shooting 44% from three. So they're playing for seeding at this point, hoping that those top four scorers can carry them. So we'll see what happens there. Again, Temple's continually going to be, hopefully, if for their case, if they keep this up, they're going to want to be playing for first place or second place every night here. So an important game on the horizon against the Charlotte 49ers. Since we last recorded, Diane Richardson's team has won 2 in a row, 86-83 win over a good USF team, and then the biggest comeback win in the program's history, an 83-82 win over Charlotte. And it's funny because that win comes against a team that wasn't as good as USF, but Diane Richardson's been looking for something. Again, we're going to keep bringing it up for these next few weeks. She went from describing her team as playing piss poor basketball to a monstrous comeback. And I think I'm certainly paraphrasing here. I think she said something after the game like, I forget. I don't know if it was Jacob, Colin. I don't know if it was you. Somebody asked why they got down that much, and I think she said something like, I don't know, maybe they like falling behind that much early to light a fire. But that's a hell of a win. You know, again, the ideally you don't want to put yourself in that position. But Colin, I'll start with you first on this monstrous comeback. I guess the obvious question is, how much are you buying what you saw in terms of like, this could maybe be an inflection point for them to say, oh, that's what we're capable of if we play with urgency and every other cliche that we can think of here?
I've been more impressed by the South Florida game than I am by that comeback win, because the South Florida game, to me, they played about as close to 4 quarters of Temple basketball that I've seen all year, probably since the first 5 or 6 games of the year, where, I mean, they were having fun. They were evidently having fun. Like, they were playing together. No one was getting down. No one was pointing fingers. You could see they're just all like the starting five of Kayla, Tristan, Savannah Curry, Jaleesa, and Sanaya Craig, all just they were enjoying playing together. They were having fun. And you could tell on the offense, they all played efficiently in that South Florida game against a team that was tied for second in the conference, a team that was picked to win the conference before their head coach left for the WNBA. And I think that carried over into the fourth quarter against Charlotte. I mean, the first 3 quarters, it looks like that Tulane game where Diane called the team piss poor performance. Like, they didn't feel like there was urgency. Didn't feel like there was, they didn't feel like they were outworking Charlotte until that fourth quarter. And I don't know how fully bought in I am that, this is like an inflection point, just because those first 3 quarters like really didn't look like that Temple team that can be able to get a top 4 seed in the conference. But I mean, that fourth quarter, if Tristan Taylor can play that way for the rest of the year, I think they could win any basketball game, because that was the best basketball I've ever seen Tristan Taylor play. And the other key there is that they finally got something. They finally got some mileage out of their depth, where Savannah Curry and Felicia Jacobs played pretty much that entire fourth quarter. And Savannah Curry hit 2 pretty important threes, played really well on defense, limiting Charlotte. So I think they only had like 6 points in that quarter. And then Felicia Jacobs had 3 rebounds. I think Diane mentioned her plus minus was like plus 23, which was the best on the team. So, I mean, the fact they managed to get some mileage out of some bench players, especially in that big fourth quarter, gives me more confidence that they can carry that into the rest of the season and continue to kind of build back up. But I mean, those first 3 quarters still happen, and it's still kind of concerning to me, where I want to see more from that like South Florida game where they were, Temple basketball for basically all 4 quarters, as opposed to, maybe they do like getting down, they like playing comeback, because I unfortunately don't think you're gonna be able to do that against a team like Rice, who's 17-3 when they're going on the road on Wednesday.
Colin, what is beyond, the obvious stuff of like, hey, this could, again, a comeback win like that is fun, no matter how you slice it. I agree. I think the USF win was just as impressive, if not more impressive, because it's on paper, a better basketball team. Is the depth maybe what you take from, obviously Tristan Taylor, really good basketball player, the way she played, I think she's perfect. 6 for 6 from three. That's obvious to see. Is it seeing that backcourt depth waking up? Is that the biggest thing that you take from this weekend's comeback?
I think absolutely. It's the fact, I mean, Savannah Curry had missed 4 games at the start of the new year. This was only her, I think, second or third game back. And I mean, she was a player that I think a lot of people kind of expected to kind of take that Tiara East and Tariana Gary role on the wing. Even before she got hurt, we hadn't really seen that from her. And then she gets hurt, and now she's coming off the bench in favor of Drew Alexander. But if they can get like 7 or 8 points off the bench from her, which she gave against Charlotte, and continues to play really good defense, which is what Diane lauds her for every time, is that she's a great defender, long arms, really has a knack for poking the ball away. If they can get that mileage out of her, and they can try to get some more mileage, get some more out of Brianna Mead and Killian Sedano, that backcourt depth to kind of provide some backup for Tristan Taylor and Kayla Turner, who just carries so much of the offensive burden game in and game out, will be huge for this team going forward. But equally, it's also seeing Felicia Jacobs playing some big minutes off the bench, and knowing that kind of behind Sanaya Craig and Jaleesa Molina, there hasn't been much from the front court. So that's equally as important to me. But I think getting that backcourt depth along more and more, it starts with Savannah Curry, I think will be huge in the last month and a half of this season.
Either way, they'll take it. Again, it's much better than where things were, as Colin said, a Wednesday night game against Rice down in Houston. And then on Saturday, they're at Tulane before coming back next weekend to play North Texas at home. All right, we're going to jump into the mailbag here. Before we get to the mailbag, as we do each week, a message from our friend Mike Greenspan of Greenspan and Greenspan Injury Lawyers. As we say each week, he's the best injury lawyer you could hope to have, but he wants to keep you safe on the roads, especially at a week like this where everybody is shoveling out. So he's got some words of wisdom here on snow and ice, and in case you're out there battling the elements, and he wants you to be in a situation where you don't need his services. But if you do, again, he's the guy to call. So here's Mike's tip for the week, and then we'll jump into the mailbag here.
When you're driving after a big snowstorm like the Northeast just experienced, it's very important not only to clear the snow off the top of your vehicle, but to check your vehicle's headlights. Because remember, there's a lot of salt and dirt and other stuff on the ground, and that's going to affect your headlights. If they're not clean, your ability to be seen on the roadway is diminished. So before you head out on the road, make sure your headlights are cleared and also your tail lights. And also, make sure you think about ice, because there is going to be ice on the road. And at night, it's black ice. You can't see it. So when you're going over a bridge, even a small one over a highway, expect that there is going to be ice on it, and take your appropriate steps to reduce your speed. Go Owls.
Several mailbag questions to get to this week. The first one comes from the screen name Lone Star 2000, one of our longtime subscribers. The NCAA just recently announced that teams may apply 2 commercial logos or patches on regular season uniforms to drive additional revenue and or fund NIL. If you were in charge, what 2 business logos would you like to see on Temple's football uniforms in the 2026 season? The sunglasses are getting
2, 5, 10, 20 years. College football, college athletics in general, every Temple fan will tell you that they're upset that they're not playing regional teams and blah, blah. With that in mind, I want to keep my business patches local, regional. Like, they should represent southeastern Pennsylvania. I think my 2 choices are Lee's Hoagie House. It's everywhere. It's got a mascot. Greg Payon and I are proud alums of Lee's Hoagie House University. And then secondly, same thing, food, Sid Booker's Shrimp Corner. I'm going to have Sid Booker's Shrimp Corner up at Broad in Wyoming, where it is. He's going to be on one corner, one shoulder. The other patch, I'll have Lee's Hoagie House. You have a big hoagie right in the patch. Total compensation, 3 figures. Temple will bring it under 4 figures with these 2 patches. But I think you got to stay true to who you are.
I like the Lee's callback because it's, they're
I had Lee's Hoagie House like 6 weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's still around, still bumping.
All right, I like those 2. You gotta have at least one local, if not both local. But
the cliche thing's gonna be Wawa, right?
Yeah, Ryan, what do you think? Or Colin, you want to jump in on this?
So I was trying to keep the local kind of aspect in it, and I know a lot of them are like in like that South Jersey, like Philadelphia region. Gotta go Chicks and Pete's. I feel like that's one big thing that you gotta go, especially to playing Link. Run right down the street. That's an easy partnership for me right there. I've been low key blanking on what to make the second one. I've been trying to like think of it a little bit. So, but
I've
that was
got
like
another one.
my first one.
I'll take your fourth, your second.
Where
Gus the Groundhog, Pennsylvania Lottery, PA Lottery, just right there. As they score points, it's a GIF. They've somehow put GIFs on jerseys, and he's just scratching. He's scratching off a scratch.
Keep on scratching. A super quick side note. I think he might have jumped on, was it Mike Missinelli's podcast, where Anthony Gargano revealed that at one point he auditioned to be the voice of Gus the Groundhog. Can you imagine?
Would he do it in like? There's no way Anthony Gargano does anything but his normal voice. So would Gus the Groundhog just have the Cuz voice?
I don't know. We'll never know.
No. He needs to have that little like high pitch. Like Gus the Groundhog is the best of us. Like he's supposed to be like the idealistic. I only think see Gus the Groundhog during Christmas doing that same commercial as ever. He's supposed to be the holiday season. You can't do that with the Cuz voice.
Okay. Colin, what do you
know.
think? Your two uniform patches.
I'm not like as someone who's not a local guy. My first thought naturally was Wawa. But I don't know. I like
I mean,
Ryan's chicken.
better revenue potential there, we would think.
Like I think I'll go Wawa. I don't think I have a second one. I don't have enough local institutional knowledge
Yeah,
yet, like Kyle
it should be a
does.
national brand that you like.
A national brand that I like.
What if it was Zen?
Zin, I'm not a Zing guy, but that I think that'd be cool. Maybe I'm a big beer guy, so maybe you can throw a beer patch on there. Maybe I
Just
like
beer, not like the
no,
other
no, no, no,
brands.
no.
Just-
Like,
Angry
the word
Orchard
beer.
Angry
yeah,
Orchard
that's what
patch.
I'm saying. Like Angry Orchard, like throw like an Angry Orchard patch on there.
I'm sorry. So real quick, your go-to example of a big beer patch was a cider, which is not a beer.
Cider. What
Oh,
is?
It's
hold
not
up.
a
If we
beer.
could,
Like no, it's just it's. I'm not
No,
crapping
no,
on
okay, I
ciders. Do
can
whatever
I
you
can
want. You
agree
have
with
Crohn's
Tyler.
disease. I don't know. Or
if
like
we go,
it's the fact that it's not a beer. It's a cider.
I can
if we're
agree with
going,
Kyle here.
if we're going beer ones, we could do in local. We could do Yards Brewing Company a little bit. That could localize a little bit.
Yards
Like
on one hand, you stateside on the other. There's all types of things if you want to get down dirty with alcohol.
That might be where I go.
There you go.
I think they would get teased for having a cider patch on there. Bunch of tough guys slinging cider at the ball. I think I would go, and I think they're getting aren't they getting either a renovation or something? I thought I read about this. Maybe like a Max's cheesesteak patch.
Mm.
And then I would go North Philly, and then I'd maybe go like something close to the stadium. I go like Celebrates Pizza. I don't want to go Chickies and Pete's because that's like Wawa-esque. But again,
Look,
whoever wants to throw money at them.
yeah. Here's what I'm gonna say. Let's be honest. If this was just true in an open market, like hey, just get most money, you're either gonna have a picture of Shaq or Kevin Hart on your patch. One of them will just sponsor the team.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Well, actually, Shaq would just require you to pay him, but then he will be on it.
All right, I like that. I like that question. I thought we'd have fun with that. The Hick, as usual, with a multi-part question. How's the staff and team morale in the wake of Coach Courtney's passing? You know, again, I'll go back to what Adam said last week. I thought or 2 weeks ago, I guess at this point, I thought he articulated his thoughts really well. And beyond that, I don't know what else they can say other than like, hey, we decided to go down to Memphis. We wanted to play because that's what Bill Courtney would have wanted. But I can't really speak on behalf of the team other than I know that the coaches in particular, Adam, Michael Huger, Jimmy Polizzi, guys that work with him down at Miami are taking this really, really hard. And I think as one of the cool things I think Adam said was he went back to a quote from Bill Courtney where he said the basketball court, and you find a lot of other coaches who have said this, it's kind of like a refuge for them. They can go out there, whether it's practice or game, and kind of forget about like the hardships of life. And I think that's the way they've explained it, the way that they're kind of moving forward. A couple other questions here from the Hick. Talking about defense, and he's saying, what are the Owls' defining defensive principles? How can coaches instill discipline in the guards to keep them from gambling and putting our bigs in the unenviable position of hedging to slow or stop penetration while trying to defend their own men? Who's the team's most trusted defender? Good questions here, but again, as Kyle mentioned before, they were a bad defensive ball club last year. Their the numbers bear it out. They're much better this year. They're currently second in the American in scoring defense. They're allowing 69.4 points per game after they were dead last in the league in that category at 77.7 points per game last season. So there's been marked improvement there. I don't know if you want to work outside in on this one. Who's the team's most trusted defender? I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, there are different areas of the court that you're defending, but who stood out to you as their most trusted or best defender?
I kind of have just like a general thought that probably touches on all of these. One thing that I always go back to a lot, because I mean, I'll be the first to admit that I'm not always as plugged in basketball as I should be when it comes to X's and O's. But one thing that I always come back to is Fran Dunphy once said that like steals are a bad representation sometimes of defense. Like people just think, oh, because this guy's averaging 2 steals a game, he's a good defensive player. When in reality, he might be a bad defensive player that's just getting lucky or taking risks. That's kind of how I view this Temple like basketball team. Like they don't turn the opponent over much at all. I think if you ask like who's the lockdown defensive guard, it's either Jordan Mason or Derrian Ford. Is like I think they trust them both to do that, but neither of them is like super great at it. I think they have such faith in their, whether it's Gavin Griffiths helping or whether it's Jemai Felt. I think they have such faith in their paint defense that they're like, look, if we can funnel people in there, we're confident. Like they're one of the top like 20 teams in the nation when it comes to blocks. Opponents only get like opponents are in 7th percentile with points in the paint. Like they don't score interiorly well against Temple. Whether that's a combination of bigger guards or Gavin Griffiths or Jemai Felt, that's just not like, I think they're comfortable with try to score in the paint, and statistically they're not successful at it. Like the opponents aren't successful at it. So yeah, I think whatever they're doing is working.
Yeah, and this might sound like a very bland and simplistic answer, but they've looked like a different defensive basketball team since the beginning of December. Yeah. We've talked about that St. Joe's game. You can talk about, it was ironic that the Deuce Jones shot that won the game for St. Joe's was a highly contested shot that just was a really good shot. It was a couple of possessions before that where they just let him go free lane right to the rim, and that was probably the most disappointing defensive possession of that game. Since then, for the most part, and this is the simple part, they're switching better, they're communicating better, they're hustling more. It's just, I don't think it's anything super fancy, whether it's Gavin blocking shots, and we've said this before, they're not just weak side blocks. It's a lot of like straight up stuff, trusting Jordan Mason, trusting Derrian Ford. And yeah, there are some possessions that you saw against FAU, or you'll continue to see, where like they give up second chance baskets because other teams have some better length, better depth. But I don't know. I think a lot of it is just like the preparation. Again, I don't know that I would have said this in early December, but they've just been a lot better, and whatever they're doing coaching wise, I think it has resonated more for them in that area.
The one thing I'll say that like happens negatively is it does feel like there's stretches in every game where some team that can't shoot threes all of a sudden shoots threes against Temple. So whether that's something that's showing up on scouting film or what, I think opponents come in thinking like, we could run on Temple and we can shoot three. I hate when you do a thumbs up and it tries to do a thumbs up in Zoom.
There it is.
Like I think they can run on Temple, and they think that they can get off good 3-point attempts against Temple. And for the most part, there's always a stretch in every game where you're like, wow, how did Rice hit whatever 5 of 6 or something against them? So
even go back to the BC game, they were not a good shooting team, and all of a sudden they start, so
that BC game, which is now only a quad 3 loss, it's working its way up.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, Hick, but again, I think that I don't know that defense would be my biggest complaint right now. It's more just so like they're not a very deep team. You were hoping for more out of AJ Smith. You were hoping to have CJ Hines on your roster, and now this is what they're rolling with now. Temple fan 45, should we consider going small more often? Feel like too many times the 5 spot is killing us. So it kind of goes back to what we were talking about. But like, again, I don't know. Should we consider going small more often? Is 5 spots killing us? I guess, is he saying both ends of the floor? But again, yeah, my question is, like Kyle just said, who are you going to? Muhammad Keita has his limitations on both ends of the
That
floor.
wouldn't be going small. That'd be going big.
No, I know, like, the five, I'm saying, like, the 5 spots killing you. Sure, it is, but like, who are you going small with? It's like,
I guess
two
you'd move
guys.
Gilliard in there more, and then move Griffiths to the 5. Like I feel
Yeah.
like Temple has a bad habit historically of playing guys out of position just because
Mhm.
some guy's big, and Gavin Griffiths is not a back to the board big.
No,
So why
no,
put him in that spot?
yeah, and against a team like FAU, and again, they got ground down at the end of the game. I don't think any coach in America should be faulted. Like, there are some games where like you might need to try a guy for a possession or two to give a bigger image out there. We know that a guy like Mo Keita has limitations. We know that Jemai has had some limitations at both ends of the floor, and Baba has. But if you are seeing 3 or 4 possessions in a row, I'm not saying this has happened, but let's say you go small and you're like, all right, Swish, get in there, give us a ton of offensive rebounds, which he's held up his end of the bargain there. But if someone, whether it's Charlotte, whether it's FAU in the tournament, and they're able to just keep posting guys up and going to the rim, you're going to put Mo or Jemai back in the game to say, I need you to put a hand in this guy's face. And if he's going to score, keep him honest. You can only go small on so many possessions. I get where you're coming from, but this is the roster they have.
They have played that lineup this year. They have played that lineup where you move Gavin Griffiths down to like the 5, and you bring Swish off, and that lineup has played 8 minutes. It is +7 in those 8 minutes. So like whatever, it did work in those small sample sizes. You could convince me, if you convince me that like playing Ayuba Bryant more, like alongside Gavin Griffiths, is your definition of going small, even though he's like bigger. You could convince me of that. Like I'd like to see some more of that for sure. But I think that's something they've done. Like Ayuba's played alongside Gavin.
Yeah. I kind of should have mentioned him earlier. And there's a guy who maybe like Cam in the backcourt, a guy that they maybe, they're being honest, didn't expect to play. Not that he's played a ton of minutes, but I think in a perfect or close to perfect scenario, you may not have wanted to play him as much as you have. But there's a guy who's throw him into the game, see what he can give you. We're not talking defense here, but he made that one move to the rim. Nice move to the rim, goes off the rim, but Gavin comes in and cleans it up for really his only field goal today. But they're working with what they're working with at this point. Last question here to close things out. Again, we say thank you to all of you for the mailbag questions you've submitted. Greatly appreciate it. Sonny Al from our message boards. Curt Cignetti won a national title at Indiana in 2 years. What is Casey Keeler capable of achieving in his second season at Temple? Kyle, this is where you boldly predict the Temple will win a national championship.
In what, badminton? Ryan and Colin can go.
I cannot get over how much you look like Bono right now. I know you don't want to hear that.
I do not look like Bono.
You do. You look like him. Colin, do you know who Bono is?
I do not, John.
Oh no!
Oh my God!
Oh, no, you just stabbed
Guys,
John.
this wasn't the mailbag question.
That's a good point. That was not the mailbag question.
Have you ever heard of the band U2?
Have you ever heard of what?
The band U2. I feel like your dad would like it.
I've like heard of it.
You're not
I know of them.
Shut up, Kyle. Kyle's a U2 hater.
Colin, what is Casey Keeler capable of in his second year at Temple?
I think he falls just short of the Curt Cignetti national championship.
Just short.
Sure.
I think a bowl game is more than possible. I like the roster that they have coming out of the transfer portal. Obviously, there's questions at quarterback, but I think a bowl game is more than reasonable. 8 wins, 7 or 8 wins. I think more than capable of achieving that. I won't go national championship like Curt Cignetti, but I wouldn't fully shut the door. You can never close a door on something like that. But I'll go 7 or 8 wins in a bowl game.
That is just short of a national championship. But no, I think that's realistic. But if you're aiming high here, Ryan, I feel like you have bright eyes and your face looks like it's brimming with optimism right now. What is Casey Keeler capable of in year 2?
I am really optimistic. Not optimistic of a national championship again, like Colin said. I think they're going to fall a little bit short of that. A bowl game. I do think that they're capable of that, like 6, 7, or 8 wins. That's kind of their range, following more of that 7 or 8 range than that 6 or 7 range. I can definitely see that.
Kyle, can I reframe the question for you or kind of just add on to it to try to, if Temple wins a national championship, we're all writing a book and making a movie off of it. People keep saying there should be a movie about Indiana. Temple winning a national championship would be otherworldly. Let's say
I think McConaughey plays me.
I love how you instantly become.
I'm part of the movie.
What makes you think? Well, what makes you think McConaughey is taking on? You want to play a bit role of a sports writer in this movie?
A bit role. Did you not just paint the picture of if Temple wins the national championship, we all write a book and they make a movie off it? I wrote part of the book in this scenario. In this scenario, I wrote part of the book.
But Casey Keeler is the story.
Is he? It's my book.
Kyle, if you're in the movie, can I be in the movie?
Yeah, who's gonna play you? I'm not in it. McConaughey's in it.
I haven't thought that far.
There you go.
I haven't thought that
sorry.
far.
I saw a thing the other day. Ben Affleck said you got 4x the cost of your money. However much it costs to make a movie, you got 4x it to break even. So if it costs $25 million, you got to make $100 million nowadays to break even, because all just advertising and whatever crap. No way this breaks even. McConaughey alone, there's $20 million gone. You think that's $80 million added to it? What we need? No chance. I'll pay him $20 million just to have a bit role. He'll be like Brad Pitt in 12 Years a Slave. He'll be on the screen for 45 seconds, but I'm going to pay him $20 million.
All right. Let's say the following things go right for Temple. They hit on Jackson Smolik. He really...
What's hit on?
3,200 yards passing. He puts up Evan Simon's passing numbers, but gives you twice as much. And
Evan Simon did not pass for 3,200 yards.
No, I'm saying he puts up... He exceeds that you really hit on him, and he becomes the quarterback that they think he can be, making good on the potential that he flashes, and lead 11 quarterback, Penn State level quarterback. That at least one of these edge rushers, like a Jalen Joseph, gets you 8 or 9 sacks, and that you hit on a few of those. You look back and say they hit more than they missed on a lot of their portal pickups, and a freshman like an RJ Blunt, you look back and say they had a really, really, really good offseason between some freshmen making an impact, and a lot of these portal pickups look smart. In that sense, we can all say 6-7 wins would be nice. They go to a bowl game, but if they really maximize a lot of what they got in the portal and on the recruiting front with the freshman class, then what's capable for Casey Keeler in year 2?
Well, in the scenario you just laid out where everything goes right, then yeah, there's no reason they can't compete for a conference championship. Do I think that every single one of those things is going to happen where, yes, they hit on Jackson Smolik or a Johnny Shepard, and yes, these FCS level defensive or Sam Houston level defensive end edge rushers all of a sudden become all conference level guys, then yeah, there's no reason they can't go compete for a conference championship. I think the more realistic thing is exactly what Ryan and Colin just laid out, where even if you hit on 2/3 of those or half of those, then it just makes you a good team in the American that wins 6, 7, 8 games instead of pushing for it. In the event that you just laid out that Jackson Smolik is a true look, I think every single person listening to this podcast and every single person on this podcast would have signed off on what Evan Simon did last year in August. Every single person would be like, yep, I'll take that. That's perfectly that's a good year from a good quarterback, stabilize the position. I don't think that's what they wanted the offense to look like. I think the way that Tyler Walker utilizes the quarterback during his time at Montana State involves the legs a lot more than Evan Simon did. So if Jackson Smolik, who fits that mold more, is able to also rush for 700, 800 yards and all this, then if all that stuff hits, then I think you have the chance of beating Penn State, to be blunt, but I just don't think that those things all hit.
Yeah, I just wanted to see what you thought it would take to them to win a conference championship.
Their ceiling is higher this year than it was last year. There's enough going on where you're okay, the floor is probably higher, and I also think the ceiling's a lot higher, where even if everything had gone right last year, they weren't going to go 11-1, right? They were going to, if everything had gone right last year, they go 7-5. That's what their ceiling was. If everything had hit, instead they go 5-7. I think that their ceiling is a lot higher in 2026 than it was in 2025.
I agree. Yeah, very well said.
Can I tell you what I went through this weekend?
Absolutely.
Are any of you aware of Great Wolf Lodge?
Yes. Yeah.
Have any of you been to Great Wolf Lodge? Did you go? You went as a child, Colin?
The oldest that I went, I was probably like 10 years old. Like I
Okay.
went 2 or 3 times.
It's an indoor like water park resort thing. And the one I went to is probably the same one Colin went to in Perryville, Maryland. A little inside baseball. Forgot to book Jordan's birthday so late to the point that like all these places they're doing a birthday party, it's like in February. Oh crap! So instead we did. How about instead of having a birthday party this year, we just take you to Great Wolf Lodge. It is chaos.
Yep,
It is
yep.
chaotic. It's like I guess all things considered run fairly well. Like they do a good job like checking you in and getting all this stuff. It was unbelievably expensive. I think I came back with a rash, but it was a good time. That's what I was doing. And like we had to cut it a day short because of the storm, so I had to leave Saturday night like 9 p.m. and beat the storm back up north. It was wild. I'll say that. Went down some water slides. Not the biggest water park guy, but I had fun. It was a good time. Jordan loved it. Haley didn't go down a single slide. She just splashed in the splash pool for 8 hours.
Next week's mailbag will feature questions about Kyle's rash.
I'm hoping it'll be gone. It might just be winter dryness.
We'll find out. We'll find out more next week. I honestly didn't know anything about it.
That's actually the second time I stayed at a Great Wolf Lodge. First time I was in Wisconsin Dells, which is the equivalent of like being in the Poconos versus Philly. Like it's like an hour and a half north of Madison. And I forgot to book my hotel in Madison until like the last minute, so I stayed in the Wisconsin Dells. I stayed at a Great Wolf Lodge for a convention, and I would come back from this convention, take an hour bus ride back there, and have a damn wristband on to boop into my room as kids are running by in bathing suits and reeking of chlorine. Good time. Use my promo code. Oh shit, we forgot to book my son's birthday to get 10% off.
I figured it was about Jordan's birthday because I saw Facebook content, but other than that, I'd never heard of Great Wolf Lodge.
Yeah, it's like a Kalahari resort. It's like the same thing. It's just indoor water park. Huge. We had one of those slides where the floor drops out from underneath you. You're like in a tube and they drop the floor out and you go, bzzz.
No.
I did that.
Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll have to up our game. A couple years ago, we took Dante. Who was it? Dante, and who else did we take to Topgolf? Sam, right? Dante and Sam? Was it Sam?
Was it both Sams?
No, I can't remember. I remember Dante being there. Maybe
Yeah,
we
Dante
go
was
to
there for sure.
maybe we go water park for graduation party.
They have a bar, and I went up to get like a beer at one point, and it was called like Buena Vesa was the name of the beer. It's like a Stone Brewing Company. It's like good, like Cerveza, good beer. And I said, "Can I get Buena Vesa, please?" And the guy was like, "You're the first person here today to actually try to pronounce it. Everybody else just says, 'Let me get that lager.' Just so you know, I'm here. I'm open till 8 p.m. in case you need me." And I was like, "What do you think is gonna happen today?" I was like, "I'm at a kids' water park. You think I'm gonna line up shots or something?"
Kyle just doing his homework and correct pronunciations.
Probably not even. I have an elementary school understanding of Spanish.
Well, what a way to tie this together. You heard from a former NFL player today. You heard about Kyle's rash. You heard about loggers. You heard about what we think
This
should
will
be
be
on
part
top
of
football
our
uniforms.
part of the movie. Will be instead of like a Rocky montage of getting in shape, it'll be a montage of us podcasting, like in preparation for the season. So this will be McConaughey rehashing this conversation. I have a Texas drawl in this.
Yeah, we got to take that one over again.
That wasn't bad. That was a decent McConaughey.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought for sure you were going to say that was terrible. Don't ever
Give me more.
Again.
Give me McConaughey.
Oh no.
Asking Jackson Smolik what he did out on the field, like asking him a question.
What's he asking him again?
He's just like he's interviewing Jackson Smolik after the game.
What's an Iowa boy like you doing for fun out here in the great state of Pennsylvania? See, it's like asking a guy who plays 3 minutes a game to go out there and start. You got your
That's on me. I gotta put you in better spots.
I also have, because my algorithm in the morning is just a bunch of Graham Norton clips. It's Michael Bublé and Matthew McConaughey being on the same couch with him, and Michael Bublé imitating Matthew McConaughey on the Calm app, and I have that in my head. But it's not to say that I would normally do a lights out Matthew McConaughey, but I don't know.
I just think that. Do you think he's annoyed at people doing, like him and Walken? Or you think people are annoyed at are they annoyed at people trying to impersonate them?
I would imagine so, and they probably just like put up with it and say, "Hey, this is a small price to pay." If you've seen the clip of Jay Moore imitating Christopher Walken, where he's out walking his dog and he sees Christopher Walken, He does the best Christopher Walken I've ever heard. It's so good.
when my brother met McConaughey like a couple months ago, he kind of
Flex.
said it doesn't have he's like the accent isn't like there like that. Like
Really
yeah.
interesting.
Ryan, real quick
You think
before
he
we
hams it up?
log out here, tell people, because I think the average Scoop listener is not aware of how accomplished your brother is. So tell people what your brother's been up to.
Oh yeah. For the past like year and a couple months now, so December like November of 2024, my brother's been on Harry Potter and the Cursed Child on Broadway. He's been doing
Nice.
that for a little bit. And then like 2 weeks ago, he was on Law and Order SVU. So if you guys like Law and Order SVU, and you probably saw my brother 2 weeks ago. So that's kind of cool.
Amazing.
Was he a bad guy in SVU?
Nah. He was he was the captain's son.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got connections here on the Scoop.
That's awesome, though. I didn't even know that. I should know that more. You should text me things like that instead of today's a national holiday because Drake May plays football.
And copying and pasting it to other people.
Yeah, that did hurt me. How many people
Yeah.
did you send that text to, Ryan?
Well,
Just you and John, but only you
I don't believe
responded to me. John
That's
didn't
true.
respond to me.
I'm the cool dad.
All right. Thanks for sticking with us. Thanks to Matt Ioannidis for joining us on the Scoop. Hope you guys enjoyed that interview and all of his insight. Talk to you soon.